And welcome to Upscale. I am joined by Alex Chisnall from Entrepreneur, Virgin Startup, and lots of other exciting things. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
No worries at all. No worries at all. So just before this, we were talking about some of the madness about what's going on and how the economy is starting to get rolling again. And to be honest, I've never been busier. Alex, I think you've been pretty busy as well, haven't you?
Dude, I'm literally up at 6 every morning, and I'm, going to bed around somewhere between 10 and 11 most nights. And I literally, maybe getting half an hour off in the evening. I'm eating my lunch next to the laptop, getting 5-minute break in the afternoon. It's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers.
Well, it's good. I think, to be honest, we'll try and get back to normal as soon as we can, and I think we'll all sleep a bit better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and it's interesting. I was just chatting to Alan Barrett from Grenade, which is biggest sports nutrition brand in the UK, number one chocolate bar in the UK now. And he was saying he feels like he's in a startup again, like when Grenade started 10 years ago, and it was just him and his wife, the only people in the company. He said, it literally
working from the dining table.
Yeah, literally said, and I've got 100 staff working remotely. So trying to get my head around that took me about a month to start with, trying to get that going. But he said, since he's, done that, he said, yes, there's big negatives about everything that's going on. People have, died, etc. People have been furloughed, been made redundant. But he said, I'm quite excited by a lot of it because I feel like I'm in startup mode again, and I'm growing the business again,
God. Absolutely crazy. So, I mean, for any of the listeners that don't know your background, Alex, give us a bit about, well, obviously we've done a lot together over the years, and it's quite a nice change to be interviewing you for
It's a first.
But tell us about your background, where you've been, what you've done, and what you're doing now.
Sure. So at the moment, I'm 100% focused on podcasts. So I started a podcast agency last year called Podpreneur, which was just basically off the back of getting my own podcast, which is called Screw It, Just Do It, to a number one ranking in the UK. And people just continually asking me for help with their own podcast. So I thought, you know what?
That got to number one on Apple Music. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Apple Podcast. Yeah, number one rated show for entrepreneurship.
Wow.
And that was with Julian Hearn from Huel. He was the one who got it to number one. And then off the back of that, we got another number one with James Haskell. And literally, it was mad. It literally went from number one in UK. We then had number one in Uganda, Kenya, South Africa. It just really, really snowballed. And I won't lie, I've taken my eye off my own podcast over the last couple of months whilst I've been helping other people with theirs. But
there has been a massive influx of new people, including myself, starting podcasts in lockdown, and I think it's going to stick for when everyone goes back to normal as well. It's definitely I definitely seem to see a surge. And some of the guests that we've got coming up over the next couple of weeks, they say, "Oh well, actually, I'm starting my own podcast, and
really,
hey, why don't you come and have a chat on mine in a few weeks?" And it's just really interesting. You ask them why, and everyone's got various reasons. What would you say is the main reason that people are converting to podcasts and moving to that kind of form of marketing?
I think definitely the fact that it's a couple of things, but I think the fact that it's hit the mainstream in the media over the last year. So literally from January 2019, there were 500,000 podcasts. January this year, there were 850,000. We've now literally just passed 1 million podcasts. And that might sound like a lot to people, but that is a drop in the ocean when you think there's over 1 billion active users on YouTube, over 20 million active blogs. So for me, I think people see that there's an opportunity to get in now whilst it's not saturated compared to trying to start a YouTube channel. I think, unless you're an influencer or a famous sports music star, it's incredibly difficult to cut through the white noise. But I think with podcasts, you do feel a real intimate relationship with your listeners. And I think it's a real easy medium for people to consume. So you don't have to be in front of a screen. You can be doing something else and you're still listening to a podcast. That's why I think people really like it. And also I think another major reason is the fact that, because we've had this pandemic and we've had lockdown, people are at home, and they are on social media more. They are looking for different ways to entertain themselves, to educate themselves, and podcasts is a real easy way to do that.
Yeah. No, I love it. No, I think that's really interesting. And just tell us a bit about your background, how you actually got to that point then. Because
sure.
You've been involved with various things, exciting.
I have, and I kind of felt like I've come full circle, because I actually started up after uni. I went to uni in Bath. I joined the BBC as a journalist, and before I know it, I then left to join Virgin Atlantic. I liked the idea of traveling, and I did that for a number of years. Loved it. It was a great experience, one of the best years of my life. And I always wanted to start my own business, though. I'd always had this itch to start my own business. So eventually I left. I set up a couple of different businesses in the health and fitness space, like an online business, and then a sports injury clinic, which I then, opened another couple, and eventually just lost my mojo for that industry, for health and fitness. Just kind of lost it, really, and ended up through a very secure, kind of fortuitous route, really, being asked to be a mentor by a couple of people that we probably know, Josh Simons and his business partner Steve, to be a mentor for YMCA, which is basically going into schools here in Bournemouth and Poole, and kids pitching their business ideas, and us then mentoring a team of those kids. And I just really loved that, and completely, I don't know, randomly, I then saw a post in my Facebook feed from Virgin Startup saying, we're looking for mentors. And I thought, who the hell are Virgin Startup? I've never heard of this company. And it was Richard Branson's not-for-profit, helping entrepreneurs with funding and mentoring for their business. Yeah. So I literally went from mentor to part-time business advisor.
I jumped on that.
And I met you. Exactly.
That's how I got
we're offices next door to each other. Okay. And yeah, just from there, I ended up then them asking me, and I didn't even know this. They said to me, do you know that you are our most successful business advisor? How would you like to take over running the regions? For us, we really want to focus on London. It's 50% of what we do. So I did that, set up a company called Startup U, built a small team. And then, like I say, how I got into podcasting, I actually went to the Startup Podcast of Virgin Startup. And in the end, they spent so long. It's a typical big corporate story that they literally took 3 months to give me a decision. And it literally went from like Virgin Startup to Virgin.com to the Virgin Group to Virgin PR, all on one day, going up the chains of these phone calls. And in the end, I was just like, do you know what? Screw it, just do it. I'm going to do it on my own instead. Got sick of waiting for them. So I named it, given a nod to my old boss, to Richard. Yeah, haven't looked back. It's best decision I ever made, to be honest with you.
How long have you been doing that for? About a year, 2 years?
No, three this month, in fact. Oh, wow. 3 this month. I know, gone quick.
When you first started it, we discussed it when I had a chat with you on your podcast a couple of weeks ago. How did you find to gain traction initially to start building up that audience, getting your first people on to talk, and just kind of building up? Like, how did you go from nothing to number one?
Yeah, good question. So initially I reached out to my existing network. So as you know, I've been doing like live events for Virgin Startup. So I had the likes of Jimmy Cregan from Jimmy's Iced Coffee, Rupert Holloway from Conquer Spirit, Mark Cribb from Urban Beach, all those guys who were probably like the better known entrepreneurs in the Southwest. So I initially just reached out to those connections as it was kind of obvious way, and they've got quite engaged communities themselves. So for me, one of the tricks when you're launching a podcast is to leverage the guests that you're getting on your show to share the content with their audiences, because you'll find you'll gain, I don't know what the figure is, but whether that's 5% or 10% of their audience for. You got a window of opportunity to entertain them, to educate them, and then they'll stick with you. Because
I think there's some statistic that every person on the planet's connected by 5 connections or something like that. Have you ever?
Yeah. And again, I can never remember how many connections it is, but I literally went from that to go, okay, let's and I went for some big hitters, and I was not lucky. I was connected to some, interesting people, and that led me onto connecting with some pretty big players in the States in the podcasting space. People like Lewis Howes, he'd just come off the Ellen show, so his star was in the ascendant. He was just looking to launch a book. I got him on my show. I got Pat Flynn, who's huge in the States again. John Lee Dumas, who all these guys are #1 podcaster in the US, and I got them on my show. And I learned a lot from them about how to launch and grow a podcast. So I had those kind of reach for the stars guests come on really quick. And then I just literally went from regional to national to international and just grew the podcast that way by getting, bigger names with bigger communities and coming up with a strategy to actually share the content on multiple platforms, in different ways.
I think you definitely have to have a direct route. Like for us, for instance, me and Dan, by the way, listeners, Dan unfortunately can't be here because he's not very well at the moment, so I'm just filling in. But I think the main thing is having just knowing who your audience is. I mean, for us, we
100%.
love people who are startups. I love sharing knowledge. That's a really, really big thing for me. So if people can have a listen and they learn, like last week we had Rhiannon Duffin on, and we were talking about how to leverage influencer marketing.
Love Ray.
Or what it's like to be in,
Great. No, I bet you couldn't.
I thought I could talk a lot. But yeah, I think you definitely need a topic of convo and then people know what they're going to be getting when they get there. So learning is always a good thing. How, in terms of, you were saying you were kind of going up your ladder with guests, how often were you getting people on? How often would you launch a podcast, for instance? Good amount of...
Yeah, so I was doing mine weekly, and then I ramped it up to twice a week after maybe a year. But I've had clients who've done that quite early, and you get a fair... I mean, it is a big commitment, I will say that, for anyone who's listening, to go to 2 shows. It just seems to not only double, but add even a little bit more. But once you get into that space, you do start seeing some dramatic results, getting into all sorts of top 20s across the world. And for me, it's not just an ego thing getting in the chart, but for me it's you get more eyeballs looking at the artwork for your podcast, so then you're going to get more listeners, and you then get featured in some of these Apple curated collections and stuff like that. So I mean, don't be afraid to reach for those bigger guests. And if you are, gonna, increase the quantity of your content like that, then just batch it. For me, it's the biggest block I have when I speak to people about launching a podcast is they're like, I don't have the time to do it. And I said, okay, so if you just blocked off one Friday afternoon every month and you recorded 4 back to back,
what I do.
Done. What else are you going to do on a Friday afternoon?
I do afternoon on a Friday every week, and I book out that afternoon. Well, I'd say afternoon. Is it an hour?
It's a couple of hours, isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
I know everyone can't see me, but I'm having a beer at the same time. So, Hey.
I know. I'm out of beer. God, I'm jealous. I've got a cup of tea.
That's cool. So we're speaking about topics, how often to post. In terms of platforms that you use to actually get things out there, what do you use? Firstly, to record, then to maybe publish, and what to market?
Yeah. So to record, it can be as simple as using your phone and an app called, for me on my iPhone, Rode Reporter, RODE, Rode Reporter. And the story around that, I was, lugging around my laptop and mics when I was going to London. So I basically went from recording online to going to London once a month. That was my Friday, and blocking out a day, thinking I could do it in half a day. But of course, everyone in London is an hour and a half from everyone else. I interviewed a lady called Maria Hatzistefanis, and she is the founder of Rodial, which is a $100 million beauty brand. She's recently auditioned to be a dragon on Dragon's Den, so she's very well thought of in the fashion beauty space. She told me about this. We were like half an hour into chatting about recording podcasts till the PR girl who was in on the interview said, sorry to hurry you, Maria, but you have got another interview after this. So sorry, we're just geeking out on podcasts, man. And she told me about it, and I, you know, she travels around the world interviewing, you know, doing fashion shows. And for example, her, I've forgotten which one it is, but one of the Kardashians is their, you know, one of their models, you know, sells their products for them. So she was like, I'm interviewing the makeup artist who's doing the makeup for whoever it is, Khloe Kardashian. And to be able to literally have it in my phone and do it right there and then is unbelievable. So that, you know, for somebody starting out, you can literally start like that. Obviously, you know, if you want to improve, then for me, you get something, which I love the names of these things. You know, you get a Blue Yeti, which is like an entry-level mic for about £100.
Is that the big globe thing, is it?
Yeah, no, so that looks more like a traditional mic. My one's bizarrely called a Blue Snowball. So I don't know what it is with the blue.
Tell you what, me and Dan, we literally use Uber Conference, and you put it on HD call, and you send. We can conference call anyone in the world. It's easy peasy. And we only chose to use that because we're in lockdown, but I'll continue to do it afterwards. I chose Zoom because I'm on my computer, but usually.
Yeah, well, I started out using Skype, and then I just found that was more and more people were asking to use Zoom. And the first 2 years, I did all of my interviews on online, you know, like that. And it was only when I thought, do you know what, I actually want to, you know, make that physical connection by meeting someone, because there is something, you know, as easy as this is. And I think the difference being, back in the day, people just used to do audio calls and you don't make that connection. Whereas now, using like a video connection like this, there's not much that's lost in the translation when you're actually connecting with someone, especially if they're a stranger, you know. And I was meeting
audio. I think if it's just audio, it's not as smooth. The conversation doesn't flow as much because there are visual cues that you look for when you're talking to people.
Exactly. You do. Yeah. Someone will nod, or someone will, you know, put their hand up, something like that. It's, Whereas I think that's been like one of the biggest takeaways at this, you know, during lockdown, is that people have realized that tech is a great enabler. It's literally leveled the playing field. I was watching the rugby show on BT Sport, and I was just like, they're using the same technology that I am, yet they're meant to be, you know, some high-end multi-billion pound broadcaster, and there's 4 of them on screen in rooms. And I just thought, if I had been the producer, I would have made sure that I would have Amazon dropped a new mic to like the England rugby captain. Yeah. They'd only given it to the presenter in a kitchen, you know. But the other guys,
the crazy thing, going a bit off topic, but one of our clients was featured on BBC South, and because it was lockdown, they couldn't send anyone to go and film them. So they said, yeah, just record it on your phone. Just take a selfie, record it on the phone, and send it to them. And that's what they did. And they you took this selfie, and you see them, they're mad, isn't it? So.
They did the same for me. I when I started the Podpreneur Facebook group, somebody from BBC Solent saw it and got in touch with me, and again said the same thing. Can you record a selfie just talking about it and send it to us? I was like, that's really lo-fi journalism, man.
So once you've recorded it, then in terms of publishing it, what's your next step? What do you do from there, or what's your weapon of choice, sort of thing?
Yeah, so it's, you know, not dissimilar to having a website, in that you need somewhere where it's gonna live, somewhere that's gonna host, you know, the content that you've created. So, you know, for me, there's a couple out there that we use. We kind of spread our clients across a couple, just because I'm testing them out, to be honest with you. So Acast is like the biggest one in the world. We've got most of our clients on that. That's really nice. There's a free option on there as well. And then there's another one called Anchor, ANCHOR. That Spotify bought last year, as they're looking to go large in the podcasting space, and that's free as well. And you can literally make your calls through there to your guests. You can drop and drag your content, your music, your intros, your outros, your main content. It's super easy these days, I have to say. And then, you know, most people probably don't realize this, but to actually distribute that podcast across multiple platforms, or you listen to it on your phone through Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify, just press one button. You literally upload your content, press a button.
We do exactly the same thing. We use a program called Audio Boom.
And I know Audio Boom. Yeah.
They have some sort of their subscription models that you pay say £10 per month, but once you get over a certain amount of listeners, you stop. They waiver the fee, and then they start paying.
Do they? Didn't know that.
Yeah, they start doing the advertising thing. But she's interesting.
Yes.
I mean, that was Mark from a marketing team, but I didn't have a clue. I was like, okay, great, we've got the podcast. Where do we put it? What do we do with it?
Yeah.
So no,
but you had some good things when I had you on our Podpreneur group, and what I liked, and I've said to this a few people now, that I'm doing a call. I've got a podcast course that I have a weekly call with to make sure they're all on track. And I was telling them what you did was you set up the launch of your podcast as an event in LinkedIn, as an event on Facebook. I didn't know that.
I've literally had about 5 people call me randomly. Unknown caller comes through, and I go, "Hello, William Niven, how can I help?" And he goes, "Oh, hi. I've been given your number by Alex Chisnall. Oh, he's recommended you as the guy to speak to about marketing."
No way.
Podcast. Yeah, and I'm like, "All right, okay."
I never knew that.
Yeah, it's really funny.
It's a great tactic. It's a good tactic. I'm going to do it next week.
It works. So once you've got your content, all that sort of thing, it's out there. From your experience, I mean, you invited me into this group called Podpreneur, which is a group of people that are at different parts of their journey through launching a podcast, whether they're right at the start phase or they're established and they've been running for a while. It's a really easy way of people kind of sharing ideas and that sort of thing. From your experience, what type of brands really benefit from podcasts as a form of marketing, or a form of marketing in their arsenal?
Good question. I like that one. That is a good question. So I think it aligns itself to a variety. So as an example, I think product-based business, it works really well. So we've worked with a number of brands who want to tie in the launch of a new product, NPD, new product development, whether that's a new nail range I was working with on that, or backpacks for another one, and they want to do it, seasonally. And for me, it's okay. So you want to do a series instead of a weekly show. So literally do, 6 to 10 episodes instead, and launch that at the same time. So make it part of your launch strategy. So, and for me, you want to do video for that as well. Obviously, for the launch, you want to do audio. You want to tie that in with, when we were allowed out, a live event. So, with the nails, that was like a big event at Kew Gardens in the Botanical Gardens there, because it was going to be a like vegan plant-powered nail range, all the rage, obviously. Out of my comfort zone.
Love it.
But yeah, product-based base works really well. I think, again, if you're a personal brand, if you're a coach, then it lends itself well to selling your services. I mean, for me, where most people think that they can earn money from podcasts is through sponsorship. For me, it's actually using podcasts to engage with your audience and then tell them about your products and services. So
I was going to ask you, from your podcasting, what's your goal?
Yeah, another good question. So my goal, I'd like to be, personally, I'd like to be known as the kind of go-to person for podcasting in the UK. I've
pretty much there already.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when I looked at that space, in America, it's owned, and I wouldn't want to compete there with the likes of the Lewis Howes or Gary Vee or any of these guys. But in the UK, I couldn't find someone. Yeah. And Rob Moore, who I had on my show, Disruptive Entrepreneur, he's making a play in that direction, and he's, got a far bigger audience than I have. But, he's known for building property companies. So it's, slightly different angle that I've got on it. I think Chris Ducker's just moved back to the UK. He was in the Philippines, and he's had 7 million downloads for his podcast. So he's, well known in that space, but he's more known for his membership site, Upreneur. So yeah, I definitely, personally, that, but bigger than that, I would just like to help. I don't know if I could put a figure on it, like 1 million people, or I'm trying to drill it down at the moment, but I want to help as many people as possible, tell their own story through the medium of audio, because I just think it's such a powerful medium, just because I found it's, it literally has, without sounding completely like a cheese ball or anything, it literally has changed my life in the last 12 months from, having my podcast, getting it to number one, and all the opportunities that have come through. Most of the opportunities have actually been people, that I've met and things that have led off the back of that.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely love that. Well, look, I think we've covered everything from start to finish with podcasting. I'd probably like to end on a note, just if anyone or any of our listeners do want to get in touch with Alex and they're interested in starting their own podcast, or they've got questions about podcasting or anything like that, I would say feel free to probably get in touch with you, via Podtrepreneur or via...
Yeah, Podpreneur is the easiest one. PODPRENEUR, Podpreneur. Just join the Facebook group. We'll let you in. Otherwise, it's at Alex Chisnall if you're on, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. Easiest way to get hold of me.
Wicked. All right, fantastic. Well, Alex, thanks for your time, and listeners, we'll catch you next time.
Thank you very much. Pleasure being on.
Cheers, guys. Bye.